Welcome, everybody. Welcome to today's first Atlassian Partner Masters session. I'm thrilled for this. This is one of my favorite communities. We are thrilled to have you here. We appreciate your time and your attention. Couple housekeeping items. We know there's a couple folks already coming in. There is a Q&A function there. So throughout the session, we'll make sure to address any questions that you have. Please leverage the Q&A function, not the chat function. That way we can make sure that we can address any question, whether it's live or we'll send you an email and make sure that we get you a rapid response. Now, with that being said, let's get started in today's Atlassian Partner Masters. The way this is an internal discussion with our Atlassian partners who are HYCU signed partners. You will get exclusive information, insights, lessons learned across product, sales, and the channel side of the house as well. So we really appreciate your attendance. We're excited to hear your feedback. And a couple of folks that I'm really excited about. There's a couple familiar faces, but we'll go through the rounds. My name is Andy Fernandez. I'm the Senior Director of Product Marketing here at HYCU, and I'm joined by Subbiah Sundaram. Subbiah.
Thank you very much, Andy. This is Subbiah Sundaram. I run products for HYCU. Very nice to talk to all of you guys.
Perfect. Thank you, Subbiah. And for the familiar faces, Anthony.
Hi, my name is Anthony D'Ambrosio. I'm the Senior Sales Specialist here at HYCU. I cover the Atlassian vertical, and I cover the Americas region.
And last but not least.
All right. My name is Bogdan Viher. I'm responsible for Atlassian partner ecosystem, pretty much meaning recruiting, enablement, closing first deals, and growing partnerships together.
Perfect. Thank you, Bogdan, Anthony, and Subbiah. So the agenda that we have today, after this quick introduction, we're going to start focusing first on product. What's new? We'll do a recap of some of our wins, our lessons learned, the feedback that we heard from you as partners and as specialists, and also give you an insight into what's coming in the first half of this year from a product perspective. Then we're going to move into co-selling with HYCU, led by Anthony, and then co-marketing with HYCU, led by Bogdan. And of course, please, for those who just joined, leverage the Q&A function, not the chat. That way, we'll make sure to answer any question that you have, regardless of the focus. Now, with that being said, there's a lot of folks here who are joining us for the first time and are evaluating and learning about HYCU as a partner. A couple things to learn about HYCU. We're globally recognized and trusted. We're the fastest growing data protection solution in the world, with backing from not only Atlassian Ventures, but Cisco Investments, Okta, Bain Capital, and Acru. We're protecting over 4,600 organizations today who trust us with the crown jewels, whether that is Atlassian, whether that is critical infrastructure. They are trusting HYCU to protect their data. We're in over 78 countries, and we have over 400 channel partners. Something that Subbiah can attest to in the team is that we are a channel-focused company. The way that we approach our sales, the way that we approach our marketing is to make sure that we drive growth through the partner, through partners as yourself. This does not only mean that we are looking to leverage you for transactions. What we are driving here is to make sure that we grow with you via co-marketing, via co-selling, but also as partners in making sure that we deliver the best possible data protection solution in the Atlassian ecosystem. Something that I want to mention as well is that something that we're really, really proud of is our Net Promoter Score, which is the highest in data protection. This is an external approach. Subbiah can mention it later on. This is something that measures how happy customers are with how HYCU is able to protect them, and we have the highest in the industry. A couple other mentions too, especially that are relevant in the enterprise, is that we are in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for enterprise backup and recovery. And when you think about the solutions that we protect, Jira, Confluence, JSM, Bitbucket, we are the only vendor in this space in the Gartner Visionary that protects the Atlassian ecosystem. We were also named a technology partner of the year by Google and a leader by GigaOM in cloud native data protection. As all of you know, and we've worked with you on many of these customers as well, we are trusted by enterprises and government agencies around the world to be able to protect the most sensitive data, especially when we think about the critical data that's inside of Atlassian and Git repositories. But this is across the entire our cloud platform. And something I want to mention as well is this is our philosophy, whether we are having a conversation about Jira or having a conversation about other workloads within your customers, there's a focus of 4 things that we want to make sure that we do for all customers. And it's making sure that we have data protection across the entire data estate. We want to make sure that customers have one place, one vendor, one trusted partner to make sure that their data is protected. And the way that HYCU does that first is making sure that they can discover this data and visualize it, making sure that they can automatically protect it in a very secure way with full control of their data, that they can recover from any incident, and that they can move these workloads. And of course, it's focusing on protecting the entire data estate, not just one or two applications. Now, with that being said, the focus of today is on Atlassian and on the Atlassian ecosystem. And what we're going to talk about a little bit too is the Atlassian system of work. But this is just a broad coverage of everything that you're able to protect within HYCU. This is something that many partners on this call already understand because your buyers, your practitioners, folks within IT or within DevOps are also responsible for a large tech stack. And that includes so many other services that HYCU is able to protect as well. Now, with that being said, this is an area where we want to pause and show our focus here. Atlassian has been talking for a while now, and this is more frequently around the system of work and how they see not only their stack, but their apps and integrations to make sure that DevOps, ITSM, and productivity teams are able to function effectively. It starts with teamwork foundations, it moves on to software development with Jira, even product discovery, and of course, high velocity service management. But what's critical about this as well is relying also on apps and integrations, not only in the Atlassian marketplace, right? Solutions like Timesheets or X-Ray, but also third-party services that also connect and work interoperably with Atlassian, like GitHub and GitLab. This is how Atlassian sees the system of work. And our focus, our mission is to be able to protect that system of work with one vendor, with one trusted organization like HYCU. And that's what you're able to see already today in our ability to protect Jira, Confluence, product discovery, Bitbucket, Jira service management, but over 80 integrations to be able to protect services like GitHub, GitLab, and even Timesheets by Tempo, things that your organizations and your customers are using every single day. Now, when you think about, if you ever want to recall and somebody asks you what's HYCU's mission, especially in the Atlassian ecosystem, it's to be able to protect that system of work. But with that being said, I think the part that we're all excited about here is actually getting into the product updates, understanding a little bit of a recap of where we were, what we've learned, what we've delivered, the lessons that we've learned, and also what we're looking at as our strategy and our focus for 2025. And with that, Subbiah and I are going to take over this session. So the first thing we want to talk about is there was a lot of underlying themes in our experience over the last year, and customers were coming to us and choosing HYCU for very specific reasons. And we want to highlight a couple of those examples. So with that, Subbiah, let's talk a little bit about a couple of the critical wins and notable organizations and themes that we're seeing. Let's start with the first one around scale and performance, Subbiah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andy. Many of you know, one of the things a lot of times in Atlassian, you guys are experts here, customers start small, teams start with a few users, tens of users, and grows into hundreds, and then the larger organization goes into thousands of users. The challenge most people actually had was that how do you protect that amount of data at scale within a period of time? Because for example, one of the customers there, which this is from what we learned is the largest deployment of JSM in Europe, that's what we learned, right? And for that particular customer, they had a challenge of being able to back up within 24 hours, right? Every day they want to at least make sure you have one good copy. They had a challenge. They tried so many different alternatives. They had an extreme hard time doing that particular one. HYCU worked with them, and we are glad to report that we are able to consistently do that for them within their window and probably even much faster than particular what they had planned for. So that's one of the first things there. Again, there are multiple things here, as you know, from a scale and performance. It's the amount of data, the number of objects, how often you do things like that. And being able to build a technology which can scale along with the customer is critical, and we're very happy we had it. That's the first one, right? The second one, I think, Andy, let me actually go on to the second and third thing there too. The second one comes down to security and compliance, right? You are dealing with customers' data. We are all dealing with customers' data in this particular case, especially when they go to cloud. One of the big concerns everybody has is that suddenly the data is leaving their hand, and then there is always this worry. I'm sure you guys deal with this every day when they think, why should I go to cloud? Why can't be on-prem? All that stuff happens, right? The key thing is that security is critical for them. When we talk about security, first is data access. They said, who has access to my data? That's the fundamental thing there. One of the things which HYCU is able to deliver for the customer is to make sure that the data, one part is the data is always under their control, can never leave that particular one. That's the first part. The second one, in a cloud, we obviously have to access the data to make a copy to some other place, right? The good thing is that we worked with the firm to make sure we follow the Atlassian best practice with regards to whitelisting and being able to control exactly who connects to the infrastructure and saves the data. That's again, from a security and we can talk a lot more about it, but this is something we take it to heart. This is one of the reasons a lot of large federal governments and people like that actually end up using HYCU, because they trust what we do here. The last one I want to probably point out here is with regards to coverage. A big problem a lot of customers actually have is there are a lot of point solutions. Oh, I can do this one, I can do the other one, things like that. The fundamental problem customers run into is that they don't use one or two tools, especially once they start using things like in the Atlassian family, and not just Atlassian family, things around the Atlassian family, right? People need a solution which actually covers the entire spectrum. A great example is our friends in Boston. I'm based out of Boston, so I have a lot more association to it. Boston Red Sox actually uses HYCU, and when they did the analysis, they had over 900 services. Today, they protect using many of their services using HYCU, and we are very glad that we are able to support the entire enterprise data for a customer.
Thank you so much, Subbiah. And one of the things here is that these are underlying themes, not across just these 3 customers, but across all of our customers, especially as we talk to you as partners and you identify these opportunities and identify these pain points. These are the big 3 underlying themes that we're seeing. And something that Subbiah mentioned that I want to make sure that we don't understate. This organization, the Boston Red Sox, in order to conduct their business, their system of work, their technology stack, what was it, Subbiah? Over 800 SaaS applications?
900 actually, that particular one, they did that.
Over 900 applications. Now, imagine trying to protect each and every one of those applications via script or via point solutions. That is a massive challenge. So organizations need to make sure that solutions that they're using to protect their crown jewels can scale, are secure, and can cover their entire data estate as well. Now, with that being said, 2024 was a very busy year, Subbiah, and I want to talk after a couple of things. But something that I want to make sure is very clear here is you as HYCU champions and partners in this ecosystem have been an incredibly valuable source of information, of use cases, and feedback. All of the decisions that we are making and how we can make sure that we improve our customers' protection, that they have a great experience with HYCU, a lot of it is also taken with feedback that you're providing. So anytime that you reach out to Bogdan or Anthony or myself directly, know that that feedback is logged in the Atlassian ecosystem, of course, and that it is truly, truly considered. But there's 3 key areas that we want to talk a little bit about. Subbiah, first of all, let's talk a little bit about some of the workloads that are supported and what was released in 2024.
So one of the things which we always pride ourselves is listening to customers and partners. That's one of the things we pride ourselves, as what Andy was pointing out. I want to reiterate the fact there's never enough time to do everything, but the key thing I'll tell you is that the more you can share information for us, the more use cases you can share with us and problems you want to solve, we are there to actually work on it. That's the first thing I want to probably mention. The second thing I'll mention is that when we started talking with many of you, one of the things which came up is that when we started the R Cloud and we started building Atlassian, our goal was to cover the entire Atlassian portfolio. That is something which we wanted to do. See, we added quite a lot of coverage there. But one of the things many of you came back and said, guys, you guys support GitHub, but not just GitHub. I also need GitLab. That's something there which they added. So we added support for GitLab. That's just an example of things there. Then obviously we added product discovery and continued our Bitbucket coverage and so on. But the other thing which we heard from many of you is that, as soon as we start talking to, many of you told us and our customers told us, as soon as you start talking about Atlassian, they initially look at Atlassian backup and they say, yeah, it's all great. Oh, do you also back up the plugins? That's the next question that comes up, because for many of them, that's a critical one. When you think of plugins, there are sometimes people, as you know, there are 2 kinds of plugins. The plugins which all of the data is already in Atlassian, right? in Jira and Confluence and all this stuff. It's already stored in the thing. That is something as part of our backup, we do that. That's there. But then there are other ones like critical elements for them, like tempo, timesheet in that particular case, right? For them, the data is outside too. There are some integrations into the platform, but there is also outside. You got to protect the whole thing. That is something you guys gave us feedback. We are the first solution provider to actually have support for plugins outside of Atlassian thing. Being able to do that, that's been very well received by the people we have talked to so far. We would love to hear your feedback. I also want to share that we are continuing to add more. Please do help us. I'll tell you, many of the times here, it's not us not wanting to do. We also, as soon as you share with us, we also try to connect with the partner who is building the plugin because we need the right set of APIs. So, but please do share with us. That's a big part of additional workloads. Andy will later on show you like how to actually request additional workloads. If you guys don't see something, tell us. We will actually be able to add it. That's the beauty of HYCU platform, is being able to add new modules relatively very quickly. So.
Thank you, Subbiah. And one of the things to mention too, as well, is the dedication that we have to our partner ecosystem is also within the Cloud development platform, and our ability to make sure that organizations are able to spin up new services in collaboration with HYCU, Bitbucket being one of them as well. And I believe we have some of those folks on this call as well. So we want a shout out to that organization as well. One thing to mention too here is Subbiah. So we talked about the new workloads, and that's kind of an easy thing for people to assess. Well, I have critical data in timesheets. I should be able to protect that alongside Jira. One of the ones that we also released was Jira Product Discovery. That actually came from our usage of Jira Product Discovery, and how within Subbiah, within a week, it became one of the most critical points of information for us as well. And we realized organizations couldn't afford to lose this as well. So with that, let's talk a little bit more, Subbiah, about some of the capabilities that we've added as well within 2024.
Absolutely. So one is the broad coverage, right, which is actually there. But the fundamental thing is that we are dealing with customers' data. And a big part of it is that one of the beauty of HYCU, or the value many of you are working with us, is that we have a platform. The platform covers a huge range of things. Once you have a platform, there are some core requirements which come into picture. It's the scale and the performance. We talked about why customers come to us for this. So we got to continuously make it better. There's never a lot of the things in the capabilities section we talk about. It's not a one and done, right? You continuously have to do it. One is scale and performance. Today, one of the reasons we are able to support some of the largest Atlassian customers is because we have invested in this thing. And as I said, it's never done because customers are growing. We have to continue to grow with them. That's the first part. Second thing is security and compliance. So this is something which we have actually done a lot of work in 2024, and there's more coming in 2025. We will talk about it as we get through. But this is an area, again, never done here. And one of the things which I'll tell you is that this, as I mentioned earlier, we do actually work quite a bit with a lot of the government agencies, and that mandates us to actually spend a lot of time in security. We actually work with AWS on what they call the WAR, which is well architected review. They have to actually give us certifications for that thing. And we're also working on some of the federal certifications. But again, this is a huge amount of effort going into that. And the last one I'll probably mention, but it sounded a little strange. You're talking about a cloud. Why backup on-prem? You're probably wondering why. The key thing is that some of the customers, especially because of regulations, have gotten to a point where they have to have a copy of the data under their control. This is specifically with some of the European regulations. Customers, it's all a question of interpretation as in a lot of these regulations. And what these customers have done is that, hey, I need to bring the data back on-prem, or at least to one of the partner managed storage. And HYCU is the only one who is able to do that today. And this is a very complex thing, but we have been able to add it, and very happy for that.
Thanks, Subbiah. Thanks. And one of the things to mention too is we were also surprised at the beginning of this use case. And what we realized was so many customers potentially didn't leverage public cloud storage targets, but they wanted to reuse what they had already purchased. And it made total sense too, to what Subbiah is mentioning as a focus for on-prem as well. Now, the last part, Subbiah, I would argue this is the most fun because it is the most varied. These are the use cases that every single partner and customer have brought to HYCU, which is, what does recovery actually look like? What does the orchestration look like? So many different scenarios. I could not fit all of them that we were able to add. But Subbiah, let's talk a little bit through what we call enhanced recovery and our focus there.
Totally. One of the reasons, I think we always remind ourselves, the only reason customer is protecting their data is in case of recovery, in case of something goes wrong, right? That's the only reason they're doing backup. The key thing is that when you recover the data, we got to give the customer the right choice, being able to get to the right place the way they want it. And it's easier said than done. I'll tell you, partly the main reason is that one is us having capability. The other one is the underlying platform being able to provide some of the constructs in that particular one that's there. And the other thing is that Atlassian has a huge range of capabilities. And the question is that huge range of customizations customer provide. The question is that how can we actually capture all of them? And that is something which we are trying to do. This is an ongoing thing. And we hear from you and from customers and have constantly added. There are tons of things added in the last year, and there's more coming, as you will hear from Andy in a short while. We'll talk about it.
One thing to mention too, Subbiah, especially within this audience, is as we all know very, very well, the Atlassian API management side can be a bit siloed. And oftentimes we are looking at scenarios where the API allows what the API allows. And where we would love your support is when there is a customer that is requesting a specific recovery scenario or a specific field that needs to be restored in the exact same way, then having that support and having multiple fronts to be able to drive those API changes will be very, very beneficial. You have our promise and our focus that we're going to continue pushing on these things as well, but it always helps to have partners like yourselves help us and drive that. Something that I'm going to mention too here is when we talk about new workloads supported in 2024, these are workloads that are specific to the system of work. But there were many other workloads that were added to the entire tech stack of a company as well. Even services like Entra ID, which many of your customers obviously leverage in order to even access Atlassian. That could be an entire different discussion that we can have some other day in another partner webinar. But know that these are the workloads that were supported that were specific to the Atlassian system of work. But now let's get to the fun part. What is happening in 2025? What is our focus? What are the use cases that we're working on? But before that, I want to make sure everyone here is a HYCU partner. The information that we're going to share is confidential. As you can see in the statement, things may change. What we're sharing is things with that are here exclusively for partners. If there are things that you'd like to communicate to a customer, please reach out to Bogdan and Anthony or myself to make sure that we have the right line of communication. But know that this is exclusive information to you as a HYCU partner and as a HYCU champion. But now, as Subbiah talked about, we have key focus areas, and we learned about scale, about making sure organizations are secure and compliant, and making sure that we have the broadest coverage in the plugin ecosystem as well. But there's a key theme that started in Europe, but has gone through globally, and is a key request from our partners and from our customers throughout many different needs and requirements and use cases. But that is actually disaster recovery. And we're going to talk about disaster recovery in 3 core areas. And this is going to be a focus for us within the first half of 2025. The first one is cross-instance recovery, especially in larger deployments with multiple sites. Organizations have asked us, and our partners as well, which is, can I actually recover into a different site? If something happens here in prod, can I recover into a different site? And that has been, and Subbiah can attest to this, one of the most requested capabilities from both the partner and the customer ecosystem as well. What I'm pleased to make sure and keep everyone updated on is that this capability is already available for Confluence, not only at the page, but also at the space level to be able to recover across instances. And then, of course, there's even more what I would call advanced use cases around sandbox seeding. I would like to be able to push specific configurations from sandbox to prod or vice versa. And the last one, and Bogdan can attest to this especially, and this is the most popular and most requested service within the DACH region, it is exports. If there is an outage, if there is a long-term outage where there's no access, can I leverage the backups? Can I export the data for an offline mode? I think Bogdan can attest of how many times this is what we've heard, and we truly understand the use case, and we understand the reason why customers want to make sure that they have access to that data, especially when we look at this ecosystem of third-party risks that we're seeing in the world. Now, that is a very, very high focus area for us. The next focus area is scale and performance. This is a main and a top reason why customers are choosing HYCU, because of our ability to help them at scale, whether it's 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 users and millions of objects. But what we want to make sure is that we continue driving this advantage. And one of those is making sure that we can not only accelerate those backup speeds, but also lower the cost for data retention. There are many things that we're doing within HYCU to make this happen. But Subbiah, if you want to touch on a little bit on one of the main drivers of this around the incremental.
Totally, absolutely. So one thing, as you guys know, generally speaking, in the world of backup, when we talk about it, we talk in terms of terabytes and petabytes and exabytes of data. That's what we typically talk about. When you think in terms of applications, generally, even a large-scale JSM Jira application, the tons of data volume itself is not, data size itself is not that big in a grand scheme of things. But the challenge, I think, what happens, as many of you know, is the number of smaller objects, the number of iteration, number of API calls, things like that. That is one thing which is we came up with innovative ways of scaling in 2024. But one of the things we want to do further is optimize this entire thing. So what we're trying to do is we have added additional intelligence in the platform to be able to do just only find out just the incremental changes between different backups, between the point of time you backed up to today, and back up only those objects which have changed. The benefits for this thing are, one is it reduces the number of API calls we have to make. Some of the calls we have to make, it's not that it never is zero, just to be completely truthful, but we have to, but it dramatically reduces the number of calls we have to make. That's one of the parts there. And also from optimization, it also helps the customer reduce some of the storage costs, things like that. In general itself, the storage is not the major part, but it also is a side benefit of that particular thing. That is something which we can actually do, right?
And Subbiah,
the last one, one thing, the last one I probably will also mention is that, as we said earlier, scaling, we today have some of the largest Atlassian deployments, but we again get to talk with customers even larger than that particular one. We always constantly look for saying, what else can we do to optimize that? That's where the power of the platform comes in, because we do scale out. We automatically, as the customer size gets bigger and bigger, we actually can automatically scale our performance, and we can actually do that. But we continuously optimize on that particular thing. So that's there. Andy?
And Subbiah, one of the questions that everyone's going to have is when is that capability going to be available within the platform? Specifically, when we're talking about accelerating backup speeds with incremental.
Totally. So this is the first week of March. We will actually, that's the current plan. So this is like less than 3 weeks away, 2-3 weeks away. You will actually have this functionality. So that's something there very quickly.
Thanks, Subbiah. And I think we can all gauge that by Bogdan's smile when you provided those news as well. Now, the next focus is the coverage of system of work. As we talked about, we already have a broad focus, but we know that our customers and our partners are always asking us for external plugins. There are several plugins that HYCU can already protect because they are stored as fields within Jira and Confluence. But what Subbiah was referencing was external plugins like Timesheets by Tempo as well. We will have a continued focus on this. Something that you're also going to see is the release of support for backup and recovery of Box, which is something that is used within the Atlassian ecosystem, within the system of work. And this has actually been done in collaboration with one of our partners, Alliantis, as well. And of course, there are going to be additional apps that your customers have, where they say, well, I'm responsible for Atlassian, and I'm also responsible for this line of business. That could be Salesforce, it could be Asana, it could be something else. What we want to make sure is that we continue to allow you to have the voice and the ability to request these services, and we will make sure that we devote our time and attention to helping your customers with that. And the last one is recovery at scale. This is something that Subbiah will touch on as well, but one of the most important things is when you have 15, 20, 25,000 users, there are a lot of ways that people can lose data. We've seen our customers in the stories that we've heard. There's so many different ways that you can lose data, whether it's human error, misconfiguration. We've even seen automations go wrong. And what we want to make sure is that we make this extremely easy for recovery at scale. This is critical. And Subbiah, if you want to chime in on this as well, because this is a very important topic for a lot of our customers and partners.
Absolutely. So the key thing is that there are times where people want some small set of data, which they accidentally deleted an issue, things like that, attachment, things like that. That is one part of it. But the question is that when it comes to getting mass set of changes, being able to recover quickly to a customer, because this is a constant request we hear from people. we already provide you functionality to be able to recover. The question is that how can we accelerate the performance of some of these recovery at scale? That becomes a critical thing because when at the time of recovery, you are under pressure and you want to get the data quickly. This is something which we are adding here, but it's just not about the data recovery. It's also question comes down to people. Can I get the information? Can I get the reporting functionality? This is some constant feedback many of you guys have provided, and we're adding additional information there, additional information in our reporting infrastructure. And the last thing is that how can we make it easy for customers to get the right, because the key part, let me give a little more context. Today in HYCU, when you recover the data, there are certain fields we show you and be able to do it. One thing customers do want us to do is that, hey, our partners have also asked us, can you make it easy for me to be able to search some of the information, provide me some additional context on, because I don't remember the exact issue ID, but I probably remember some of the text in that particular one. Can I just give you some hints and can you get that data back? That's the other thing which we are trying to add.
Perfect. Thank you, Subbiah. And one thing to mention too in this last bullet, which might be sometimes the most important bullet, is there are going to be new and edge cases on the recovery requirements that will come up, especially in the larger organizations. You have our commitment and our focus to make sure that we can always ensure that we can do our best to what's physically possible with APIs to help customers be able to restore. We've seen this. We've added, I counted dozens and dozens of new types of restore operations. We will have to continue doing so. But just to summarize for a little bit, these are the key focus areas for the first half. Potentially in another session, we can talk about key focus areas for the entire platform. There's so many different capabilities that the product team and Subbiah are working on to make sure that this is the best data protection platform in the world. And for those that are interested, let us know. We can invite you to these sessions as well. But this is what our key focus areas are in the world of Atlassian and our focus in the Atlassian system of work. Something to double click on for a second, though, is how critical this orchestrated disaster recovery for Atlassian Cloud is. Something that I want to make sure is understood is that this is not just an import and export function. This is API-driven orchestrated disaster recovery from one instance to another, but all done with customer-owned backups. As Subbiah mentioned, one of our core philosophies here, and the reason that customers choose HYCU is because they have full control of their data. They have full control of their data to store it, whether it's in the public cloud or on premises. HYCU does not store that data. We are an encrypted highway for these customers. And this is a critical reason why HYCU is the choice for the enterprise as well. But as you know, this capability is already available in Confluence, and we will provide updates later on when this is available for Jira and Jira Service Management and Asset Management as well. But something that I want to make sure that we talk through as well, it's not just the capabilities from incremental that Subbiah discussed that are coming in like service update. It's also the offline exports for all three, for Jira, for Confluence, and for Jira Service Management. In the first week of March, customers and partners will have access to be able to export all three of these applications from the backups as well. We're very excited about this. We know Bogdan's very excited about this, but this is a critical requirement for organizations, especially in the enterprise globally, but we know that there's a huge focus for this in EMEA as well. And the last thing that we want to, go ahead, Subbiah.
And I want to just add to what you were saying. The reason for this export capability, as some of you might be wondering, why is that an important thing? One of the things when customers buy a data protection solution, they are trying to mitigate risk. Atlassian is highly available. They keep the data really well. But there are times there is always a remote possibility, Murphy's Law, right? There's always a remote possibility something could go wrong. So they want to have the ability, just in case the service is down, can I get access to my data? And can I do that? That's one thing people have asked us. That's one of the reasons we added this export capability. This is explicitly from the customer request there. I just want to share that. That's why this becomes, like, hopefully they never have to use it, but it's there always just as a safety mechanism.
Thank you, Subbiah. One last thing to mention too, before we move on to the co-selling and the co-marketing side, is every customer and partner, as long as you have a HYCU account, and if you don't have one, let us know, you have the ability within the product to request the protection of a specific plugin or any type of application. If you are performing a demo or a customer is using it, they have the ability to say, well, actually, to think about it, I really need JSU automations, or I need something like X-Ray, or I need another completely different service. they have the ability to request this from the product itself. They go to the marketplace, as you're seeing in this GIF. You simply name it. It is tagged to the organization or to the partner that's requesting this. And this is something that we look at very, very diligently. It is one of our primary sources of information. And when it comes to what organizations are looking to protect. So with that, from the product section, thank you so much, Subbiah. Subbiah is going to stay on for Q&A as well. We'll make sure to address any question that is out there. Please let us know any questions. We'll make sure to address by the end. Subbiah will stay on. But now let's talk a little bit more around the sales side, co-selling with HYCU. With that, I want to introduce Anthony D'Ambrosio as well.
All right, thank you for attending. And in this session, we're going to talk about how do you sell backup for Atlassian and outside of Atlassian, right? We do more than Atlassian, but the goal of this call is to really focus on Atlassian as a whole. How do you have a discussion with your customer around backup? And what are the key things to keep in mind? Like what works and what doesn't work? All right. So as a company, we have global sales and partner coverage. So we have over 300 plus employees. We have 24/7 worldwide support, whether it be technical, sales, account management, customer success, and again, partner support for you, our partners. So I oversee the Americas and Bogdan oversees the APAC EMEA area. We work together to provide support for our partners. So whatever questions that you have, whatever you need, we're here to support you. And then we have individuals in each of the regions to help provide support within those specific regions as well, as you can see on this map. All right. So what works and what doesn't work? So prior to joining HYCU, I worked for a solution partner. So I got to see both sides of it as a solution provider and now working for HYCU as the actual vendor. There's a couple of things that I observed during my sales cycle. The first thing is not being upfront about talking about backup. Customers already backing up their on-premise solutions. Going to the cloud, some customers assume that it's automatically backed up. I could restore my data. Atlassian's going to be covering that. And that's not necessarily true. Atlassian does have some backup capabilities, restore capabilities now, but that's not how it was a few months ago. But there's something now. Some have scripted backups. But having that conversation up front before they migrate to the cloud is ideal. The other thing is, not all customers are aware there's a shared responsibility model. And this is outside of Atlassian, right? Pretty much any SaaS product out there has some kind of shared responsibility model. You're responsible for your data. If there's a severe outage and Atlassian has to recover your data, that's what they're promising you. But, as we brought up earlier, if there's data loss, corruption, someone makes a mistake, Atlassian's not going to provide that level of restore functionality. That's really on you as the organization. This is where HYCU comes in to kind of address that, right? Now, one of the things that I've seen, speaking with partners and customers is that they find out later on, either after a migration has happened or later through the migration process, oh, you need backup. And then what happens is that creates issues during the sales process now. They haven't secured budget for it. They didn't include that as far as their licensing budget. There's things that come up. So now it becomes like, I didn't know I needed that. Customers are not going to say, oh, I got to go to the cloud. I got to pay for backup. I'm not going to go to the cloud. I don't think that's really going to become a blocker in this whole conversation. It's like buying an on-premise solution. They're like, I'm not going to buy the on-premise solution because I need to back it up, right? It's just part of the scheme of things, right? They're already aware of it. They probably already have a budget allocated to it because they've been backing up their DC instance, via VM snapshot. They're already paying for storage. They're already doing these things. So there's probably money already allocated for that for Atlassian for a backup budget. All they're going to do is just kind of move that over down to their cloud budget. So just having that conversation up front helps ease the process when it comes to selling backup. Now, I didn't have an issue prior to joining HYCU selling this and even at HYCU selling backup. I would just let them know, like, as part of the process, look, when you go to the cloud, you have the backup of your data. We don't really need to focus on this right this moment, but just let you aware that you definitely need to look into some backup strategies, and we can talk about that later on in the migration, right? Now, the other thing is focusing on Atlassian's native backup. focusing on what Atlassian doesn't do doesn't really help drive the conversation. What you need to do is focus on what is needed and kind of steer it towards the backup providers. What are the features and functions that are available for backup and restore? How do they go above and beyond what you would expect from a backup perspective? You know, Atlassian is to provide something, but Atlassian is not a backup platform. They're a different platform. They're providing software as a service. It's workflow applications, collaboration tools, things of that nature. But their specialty is not backup. That's our specialty, right? So what does work during the sales cycle? The first thing is when you're having a conversation is understand, do they have any compliance or regulatory requirements around data compliance that need to be addressed? Do they need to keep the data for 7 years, 15 years, 3 years? Maybe they only need it for 90 days. Just kind of understand what that looks like can help drive this conversation fairly easy. Then understanding what their on-premise backup strategies are. You know, do they back up their Atlassian right now? Do they keep it for a year? Do they keep it for 90 days? You know, how long do they keep the snapshots? Are there any legal holes that need to be placed on some data, right? Things like that. Kind of understanding that kind of helps drive this conversation fairly easy. And then the best thing to do is, if you are doing a migration, just position it up front, right? Just say, look, for your licensing budget for Atlassian and all your marketplace apps, including backups, going to be estimated about this price based on your licensing tiers. And they're like, okay, that's my licensing budget. And then you kind of drive that conversation as you go along. It goes very smoothly. And then providing use cases and scenarios that require backup. You know, Andy covered a whole bunch of them, right, with Subbiah, like different reasons why you would have it. You know, customers may accidental deletion of something, corruption of data, a bad automation creates data loss. You know, having those kind of conversations and then asking them, have you actually had a data loss? And the answer may be yes or no. Well, what did you do? Did you lose data? Did it get deleted? So this kind of drives into what does a customer need to think about when it comes to backup for Atlassian? Well, the first thing is again, compliance. There are any PCI, PII, or DORA compliance requirements around backup that require offsite location of those backups. You know, the new export functionality, they require access to that data in case of a severe outage, right? You know, do they require rapid and granular restore backups? They need to restore from a project level, space level, all the way down to an attachment or comment level, right? Now, if you have large instances, how do they go about getting that data and getting it restored? You know, scripting is not ideal for that. Most customers are doing scripted backups, but they haven't really actually validated those scripted backups. They just know they have them, but they can't say like, I've gone through the compliance checklist and I can restore from it. And when they actually have to go through it, they realize it takes 5 to 10 days to do that, right? Because they got to do a complete restore and then extrapolate the small amount of data they need and then bring it back over to production. And then they realize, well, I should just had backup. It would save me so much time and I couldn't be able to restore that data, right? Then marketplace apps. You know, I've seen implementations where they have 100, 150 marketplace apps, right? There's a chance of something going wrong there. So having the ability to roll back data or anything, configurations, things of that nature is very important. And then, you know, Andy brought up being able to seed different instances, right? Customers have to bring data from production to sandbox, from sandbox to production, and that's a very time-consuming process. Being able to do that, leveraging a backup tool, makes it so much easier, makes the administrative component of Atlassian much easier. And then you also have multiple team members that can help with the restore. So with the HYCU, you can have backup operators, you can have restore operators, you can have viewers, you can have the help desk go and view to see if something can be restored, a ticket can be created. They can say, yes, the data exists, and then a restore operator can go in, or an administrator. So there's different permissions that you can have and have a team work to help restore that data, right? And then you want to protect your data against insider threats. You know, that happens, right? Companies have, you know, an employee that's getting ready to leave, may do something malicious. It can happen. It can also be unintentional. It doesn't always have to be malicious intent. Right? All right. Now let's talk about some of the capabilities versus Atlassian versus third party, right? Atlassian, you can do a full backup, you can export data, and you can do a full recovery. That's great. But that's just like a stopgap measure, right? That's something that overall you can do, but customers are asking for more. Almost every single conversation I have is, I don't want to do a full backup. I just want to be able to restore a project. How do I go about doing that? Hey, we accidentally deleted a space. I just want to restore one single space, right? Granular recovery is extremely important. You know, multiple backups. You know, you're not going to run a backup every 3 days, 5 days, 7 days and say that's sufficient. A lot of things can happen. You may have environments that are touched and need to be backed up more frequently. You need multiple backups a day. I've already spoke with some customers where they had that backup. They back up every 3 days. Something gets deleted and it's not included in that backup. They really need that data. How do they go about getting it restored? That's why a solution like HYCU is going to address those types of use cases. Plugins like we back up Tempo timesheets, and we're expanding those marketplace apps. Disaster recovery, role-based control, right? Avoid single point of failure, reporting, be able to log all backup activity. These are things that customers are looking far and above beyond what is offered right now with what you have with Atlassian when it comes to backing up via scripts and native functionality.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Anthony. I think one of the things that I love what Anthony said here, it's, Anthony has sold HYCU as a partner and as a HYCUer, and he's seen what works and what doesn't work. If you ever have questions, if you ever have doubts, if you say, well, we've actually just positioned backup, or we're thinking about positioning backup to this customer, but we're thinking about how to do it. Anthony and Bogdan are incredible resources to help you navigate what that looks like. And the reason I mention this is because Atlassian is not alone in this world of shared responsibility and backup. And Subbiah can attest to this as, one of the first third-party backup providers for Google Cloud. Even folks running infrastructure in Google Cloud went through this understanding of, wait, it's in Google, it's their responsibility. Actually, no, you have to provide backups. Well, I can script it. Well, actually, it might be better to have third-party backup vendors. It's happened with Google, it's happened with AWS, with Salesforce, with Microsoft 365, and it's happening with Atlassian now. This is not novel. It is not an Atlassian only issue. And to what Anthony said, this is not positioning Atlassian in any type of negative way. So what Anthony mentioned is Atlassian is not a backup company. They are responsible for providing high availability and DR at the system level. It's really, really hard for Atlassian to understand when Anthony and I accidentally deleted an automation versus did it on purpose for a cleanup. It's impossible, and they will never be able to understand that. So their responsibility is not to give you complete backup and recovery as a platform. It's to give you the foundations that you need to provide work, and then leverage in the system of work organizations like HYCU that can help you protect. So we really want to make sure that when we drive these conversations, whether it's with Atlassian directly, even when we're at Teams 25 presenting, we want to always position HYCU as complementary to help people land safely in Atlassian Cloud, not necessarily as Atlassian has a gap and HYCU is filling it. It's about how we can help customers throughout these specific use cases. But if you, when in doubt, reach out to us and say, look, I have a specific customer, they just migrated, we haven't had a backup conversation. How do we approach this? We are here to help you throughout. Even if a customer at the end of the day decides to do something else, we're still here to help, because it's important that people start protecting their instances in the cloud. Now, with that, we've gone through product. We've gone through kind of the co-selling motion. Last but not least, let's talk about actually activation. Well, how do I get started? I've just signed with HYCU. I'm looking to either talk to my customers or drive new business with HYCU. What does co-marketing look like? What do I talk about? How do I get started? With that, Bogdan is going to take us and kind of guide us through this process.
Thank you, Andy. And I have to say, it's great to see many familiar names in the audience. Thank you all for coming. So let's see how we can work together and expand your business with HYCU. So as many of you know, we love joint partner marketing activities. Now, in my experience, and I've done many of those, what works really well are any kind of joint webinars on hot topics, such as regulatory compliance, disaster recovery. We can easily get like 50+ people register and attend, and these sessions are really successful also as a follow-ups to those activities. Then various in-person and custom events, such as lunch and learns, breakfast events. This can be either 2-hour event, half a day, full day events. We love doing those because interacting live with customers is simply invaluable, and you can have great Q&A sessions and just clarify a lot around this shared responsibility model, why this makes sense, what kind of challenges customers are seeing, and so on. Then ACE community events. Oh, you will find Anthony and myself, at all of these. Anthony is actually a community leader in the US, and obviously has a big presence there. And I'm trying to do my part in EMEA as well. So if there's a new community event around in the corner in your place, hey, let me know. I'll make sure that I can go and at least say hello, if not present at one of those events. Then any kind of joint activities around Atlassian events, let's say team in Anaheim or in Europe, or maybe high velocity events, Unleash, roadshow events. We love doing those with partners as well. So let us know what would make sense and what is feasible, and we are in. And any other trade show. So basically, you see, there's so many possibilities for us to work together, and of course, to enable all of these activities, we have tons of out-of-box contents for those activities, readily available, nicely packaged. You go to Atlassian Partner Kit that is available online. And by the way, if you will click on the link on the slide, it will bring you straight there. Or simply Google HYCU Atlassian Partner Kit. The first hit should be that. And you will find very nicely structured information by topics like ITSM, DevOps, compliance, and we can start really quickly with a lot of this valuable information already available. But it doesn't stop here. One of the key things is that protecting Atlassian Cloud, for our partnership should really only be the beginning. What is not uncommon to see is to be able to double, triple, quadruple even, your business, the size of your business with, if you ask customers just a very, very simple question, like, what other SaaS applications are you using in your company? And this is where DORA and SaaS partner kits that are also available. Again, just Google, you will get straight there, because the information there helps you understand how you can uncover these possibilities and land with Atlassian and then expand across, entire compliance topic or the rest of the functionality that HYCU R Cloud platform delivers. So I trust this will give you some great ideas on how to proceed. So to support that, we of course have also MDF funds available. Then you can all apply for, and that is absolutely there for you to take advantage of. Don't forget, for all the latest updates, please follow us on LinkedIn. You subscribe to our blogs, and absolutely you should also join our partner community on the LinkedIn as well.
Bogdan, thank you so much. And something that you emphasized here that's very important is, and something that Anthony talked about, it's not about saying, hey, did you know you don't have backup in Atlassian Cloud, and sending an email to the customer. It's really about making sure that we drive specific use cases and specific scenarios. So if you have an ITSM focused shop, if you have a DevOps focused organization, if you're really focused in different use cases, or you are really focused this year on driving security use cases or compliance, these are all different angles where backup ends up being part of the conversation, but allows you to drive a much broader services-based conversation versus just license resale as well. The goal here is to position both HYCU and you as the partner as thought leaders in the space, and that we're solving very specific customer challenges. Backup happens to be one of the solutions for it, but we know that the services that you provide as a partner are very, very critical. With that being said, this session has been recorded, by the way. You are also going to receive access to the deck. I'm leaving here a couple of QR codes for you, where you're able to quickly identify if you have a customer or you want to try HYCU for free yourself. If you are requesting MDF, maybe you have an ACE event or an event that you'd like to drive with us, or if you're ready to register a deal. And what my favorite is as well, for the HYCU Partner Portal. This is a brand new portal where you have access to everything that you need as a HYCU partner. And this is something I highly, highly recommend if you haven't created an account for you to try now, because this will have all the source of information that you need, from marketing to co-selling as well. So with that, we had a couple of questions that have been answered. We want to make sure that we address any other questions that you have. If you have questions on the selling process, on activation for marketing, or if you have questions for Subbiah and I on the product, please send us a note. We will make sure to answer as quickly as possible. We really, really value your feedback, all of the support that you provided us, and we want to make sure that we deliver that back to you. 2025 is going to be an incredible year. with a huge focus for us. And we want to thank you all for your attention and your guidance as well. Thank you, Subbiah, Bogdan, Anthony as well. And we hope you all have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.